There's no other work that we are supposed to. Unfortunately, we are also expected to ask difficult questions from those who have been given responsibility. So if we want to collaboratively as government, we must serve those people who are not here. So hence I was saying, then as we engage, at least let's get that sense to say we are accounting for what we could do and what we could not do in a manner that leaves us with hope that there's something that is being done. So that was the, I know some members are saying, hey, why should you caucus for us? And we are not saying so. Rather than saying you are not ready to respond, leave us and come back next time, we thought we should allow you space so that as well as you respond, the other one might say this and the other one might contradict that. So we didn't want that, honorable members. We just want the department to be open, but as they are open, they do so in a single manner. I was preparing UDM to hand over to you to say we are resuming the meeting. You'll guide the whole process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and thank you very much for the opportunity once more and a brief break. Body break, it was worth it. I won't comment. Honorable Spies, thank you very much. The body break was much appreciated with lunch. I wouldn't comment, Chair, on the caucus, but we appreciate the opportunity given to the department as well to regroup and re-look. It was quite a sizable number of questions. Some wanted us to put them together and make sure that we were able to put a proper response. Chair, with your permission, I'm going to request DG Avril Williamson to start, possibly on the DCOC part, and in the order of how the presentation were made. Then the DGs will also lead, and the CEO on the areas of their key responsibilities. Of course, the DG May is accompanied by DDGs and the chief directors of various areas of responsibility in the department. May also request some form of additions from those. And we will conclude with Honorable T.M. Bapela as we wrap up. Thank you, Chair, for the indulgence. With your permission, Chair, can I request DG DCOC to start on the answer and response session?
I will be there, don't worry.
No, thank you so much, DM, and good afternoon to the Honourable Chair and to all the Honourable members. There are a number of issues that I thought would be important for us to respond to, and also linking our responses back to the issues that were also indeed raised by the AG. And I thought I would cluster all the issues for us to be more focused in terms of the responses that we provide. So the first part relates a lot to the CWP, and it talks to the CWP assets, the non-payment of participants, and the remodeling issues. But I think more importantly, the irregular expenditure and also the material irregularities. So I would like to spend some time responding to all those questions that were indeed raised, and how these also then link back to issues of controls within the department, and the fact that the AG also raised weak controls, and also just looking at our procurement then and the reporting and record keeping. And of course, Honourable Mkalipi asked the question firstly as to whether we are indeed addressing the root cause issues, as has been raised by the AG. I must say that Honourable Mkalipi, in our PAP, or the current audit action plan that we have, we've specifically done a deep dive, and we've looked at people, process and system issues as really the root causes of some of the challenges that we've had, especially those that have become repeat findings. We will be also having a workshop very shortly with our audit committee members, because we also thought we would bring in more ideas around how it is that we can resolve some of these issues. The issue as it then relates to the dysfunctional municipalities that were cited, the 64, and the reference made to the AG's report on page 28. Indeed, I think the important point to note is that when we did the State of Local Government report last year and we had presented it through to Cabinet, yes, we did indeed look at what we call the Municipal Support Intervention Program. I will ask Mpo to elaborate on that and in essence some of the interventions that we thought we would need to deal with. So coming back then to the issues around the irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure, I must say a lot of the issues here in the 3.8 billion are historical. And it goes back even to 2013. So for example, where you have the matter of the 379,000 and the fact that there was a cancellation of a venue. This actually goes back to that time. What we did was to ensure that we actually pull out or pull up whatever we thought historically would be an issue, and this was one of them. The other one that is really makes up the biggest part of the 3.8 billion was the contract, the CWP contract between 2018 and 2019. There was a Seriti judgment, I don't know if members might recall, that was actually made, and that court judgment indicated that that entire contract would be deemed irregular, and it's on that basis that I think the value is sitting at between, I must get the value right, but it was over 3 billion related to that contract. If you also then look at it, we had to request the court to also give us an extension on that particular contract, and it was for this reason that the 16 million that we reference actually then fell into this particular financial year. The other part that was also then mentioned in terms of the irregular expenditure related to the NDMC and the lease agreement that we have on the NDMC facility. What happened at the time is the department had tried to actually piggyback on the MISA contract. It was a transversal contract, and on seeking permission from the National Treasury at the time for condonation, it was actually declined. And it was on that basis that it was then deemed to be irregular. What I don't recall is the actual year at which it was the whole transversal contract issue had started. I just can't remember the year. But that also goes back, I think it's about 5 years or more. I also thought that it would be important for us to then maybe go into some of the even more details around the irregular expenditure as to, so where are those people now? What disciplinary action has been taken? Have we commissioned investigation reports? Have we reported those to the Hawks? I want to say we've done all of the above. All of the above. In some instances, there were employees or officials that had left the institution, and on that basis, no action could be taken. But where action was required, we have taken disciplinary action against all the officials that were actually pointed out within the investigation reports. Another thing that everyone needs to know is that there was more than one investigation that had been commissioned by the department. I think we were sitting at about 4 investigations that were done at the time. We do, though, I must hasten to say, have 2 disciplinary matters that are deemed outstanding. Those matters are on their closure. We're actually just waiting for a report to actually come through from the presiding chairperson on the discipline. We have written letters through to the Hawks, to the SIU. We've handed over the matters, especially where we also needed to ensure that we recoup monies that were due to the department or were lost. So, for instance, on the Sekhukhune matter, so we have reported all of that to the SIU. The process has also been very slow in terms of the actions that need to be undertaken. So whether there'll be arrests, etc., that has taken also quite a long time. So I'm hoping that the history then assists with this. And I know that the 3.8 billion amount is alarming. As an accounting officer, it's not easy for one to have to sit knowing that you have irregular or wasteful expenditure to that value. But I also moved with the premise that the history might have been there or in the report. So I'll make certain that going forward that I provide all of that within the presentation. I also thought that the matter is also raised then by, I'm still with Honourable Mkalipi, but I'm also trying to just capture most of what I thought I could group. The other element that I thought would be important to note then is just with regards to the councillor gratuities. Now, on this one, I really believe the department does owe an apology, because we are here to serve the people ultimately. That's why we are in the roles that we perform. And our hearts need to be in the right place, and we need to be responsive on that basis. I thought that I would then just share where we are with the gratuity payments for councillors. To date, we had actually paid 5,030 councillors. The total number, the number of eligible councillors was 5,030. The number that was paid was 5,021. So 9 were not paid, and of the 9, 8 were due to the fact that they are deceased, and we were waiting their estate details. We had one person in Tshwane who we could not also reach for hospital because they were in hospital, and it was for that reason that their documents were then outstanding and they remain outstanding. When it actually comes to the top-up payments to councillors from an IRP perspective, for the 2021-22 financial year, 4,833 councillors were paid. That made 100%. For 2022-23, there were 197 of councillors who should have received their IRP 5s. 100% of them have also received their IRP 5s. Now, the IRP 5 certificates for the current tax period are also due to be finalized by the 31st of October. So that is what remains outstanding in terms of what the department is required to undertake or to do. And perhaps Chair, I would also like to then just mention to members that I will follow through and find out why is it that the team has not been responsive, because I myself have received queries directly from members, the Honourable AGSA, and I have even telephonically gone into reports to check myself and make sure that we are responsive. For me, that's absolutely important. The question around the DDM and the DDM framework and whether we fully have such a framework and whether what we are reporting is indeed accurate. Yes, the department has developed a guideline and a framework on the implementation of the one plans. And yes, the department has gone through a process where we issued communication to all municipalities to be able to then develop what we call their draft one plans. The three pilot sites do indeed have one plans. All other areas, we took it as the first round for which they were required to have one plans developed. Subsequent to this, we actually established a quality assessment team that actually then had to review the quality of those one plans. In other words, what were the gaps that we actually then saw in those one plans, and how it is that we would then need to go back to the drawing board and make certain that we improve the current one plan framework that we have, or guidelines that we have. We have also since done that, but it's a process. We are still engaging municipalities once more. We are providing the support that we need in order for us to actually have those improvements being undertaken in the one plans. But perhaps Paul can also elaborate in case I might have left anything out of that. Anae will respond to the issue of the fire services, and will. So perhaps maybe also just to mention, sorry, and Paul maybe would need to cover this, is all issues that are were referenced by the honourable member here about whether we do have the fire service issues in relation to water, etc. Are they linked back to the one plan? I must also say that some of the issues as raised are indeed operational. They will not necessarily also appear in the one plan. They should appear in the IDPs of municipalities. I think that I would ask Ms. Vimba to then respond just on the water issues a little later. I thought the other question that I should perhaps also just look at, that also came from Honourable Spes, is that we will certainly share the documents that we have on the one plans. And the other point that I also thought would be important to mention is that from an IGR framework perspective, is that we are looking at the regulations that will actually support the implementation of the one plans. But even so, even in that process, we are still consulting and actually looking at how it is that we could better enhance or improve the tools that we have developed, and so that we also make absolutely certain that they are supported, so that we can really look at giving us the outcomes or the results that we would like to anticipate. Okay, on the issues of under expenditure as they would relate to the cost of employment. A 10% vacancy rate, if you look at it or you benchmark it to a standard that is there in the DPSA guideline, would be deemed okay. However, we do fully also understand that institutionally, that with resignations and exits, etc., of persons, that we must also have timelines that are much more condensed in order for us to be able to get positions filled as soon as possible, because we understand that they do have an implication on the operations of the department, or that it can negatively impact, the fact that we are not then in the best position to be able to render the kind of functions that we should. So yes, we do have a plan. In fact, we've instituted what we call recruitment plans into the department. All senior leaders who have positions or vacancies in their areas are required to actually have a plan, and they are supported by HR in terms of when they would actually then fill positions. We also have turnaround times that also relate to when positions need to be filled by. Our average turnaround time rate is not as good as I would like it to be. Ordinarily, it should take us not more than 90 days to 120 days, but in some instances, especially at the more senior level, it has taken us a bit longer to fill positions. I think Peter can then also elaborate for us on the CWP around its configuration and some of the additional weaknesses that we might still have in the system, and what we intend to do around that. So I would ask him to come in at a point. And then just also then with regards to turning the department around, and the comments that were then made by Honourable Direko. Honourable Direko, all I can say is that the department is going through a change process. And we know and understand that if you're looking at the history of the department and where we come from, we've got at least 10 years of history that the department has had to also deal with. And to be honest, to the point of most of us also being frustrated, and we've had some of these conversations also with the AG, because we believe we want to focus on the future and what is it that we need to do, and that's where our resources should go, rather than focusing on trying to fix the past. But having said that, we know and understand that change. It's the way we have to do things. We have to improve in terms of the pace at which we work. We also have to, and we take note of what the AG has said, and we also note that the change process itself, we do also need the time to go through that process. And whilst I understand the frustrations, even coming from ourselves, but we have to walk the path, and of course we have to be disciplined in all of it, that we have to do. And of course, holding the 500 staff to account in the department is also paramount. I think some members in the department would speak to this. There are some views that I might be soft in certain areas, and there's some views that I'm tough in certain areas, but we try to maintain the balance on what it is that we are required to do. So I would like to then just perhaps maybe then hand over at this point to Mpho, if he wants to then just add to the issues of DDM, and if Mpho also wants to add to the issues of the one plans, if I left anything out. Mpho Mohale is the acting DDG for the Local Government Operations Support Unit.
No, thank you very much. There's a free mic next to the chair.
That's that.
Then I'll take you on CWP.
No, good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson and members of the committee, and to my DMs and DGs and my colleagues. All protocols observed. I'll just amplify on what the DG has indicated on the one plan to indicate that so far, the initial project of the DDM rollout was targeting the pilot in Oartambo, Etequini, and Waterberg. And a lot of resources and effort was put in those three spaces, and the one plans were developed. So they were intended to help us to make sure that as we roll out to the rest of the other spaces, we can then take cue from those lessons. But then as we were developing those one plans for the three districts, then we were directed that we must now also roll it to the rest of the country. So there were two parallel processes that had to unfold. I just thought I'd give that context. But where we are now is that, as indicated in the report, is 49 one plans that have been developed. And as the DG has indicated, work has been done by a panel that came together to assess them. And out of those one plans, the ones from the pilots were found to be the best in terms of what was intended to be achieved. And as a result, the rest of the other one plans that have been developed, we have asked the districts, supported by the provincial departments and national departments, to improve them, and then we gave them a deadline at the end of this December. I'm just talking in terms of the future, this year, where they must. We hope that the quality of the one plans will be at a particular level. As DG has also indicated, the focus of the one plans is at a high level is catalytic. We're focusing on programs that are going to make a difference in those spaces to make sure that we're able to push the frontiers of poverty, unemployment in those spaces. And we are at a stage where these catalytic programs have been identified as, at least in the three pilots. We are actually sharpening them to finalize them and programmatize them and ensure that they can also be rolled out. One of the examples is the Eastern Seaboard, which has actually moved forward in terms of this work. So I just thought that I covered that part of the one plan and the DDM. On the other matter, DG, on the issue of support to municipalities, yes, we all know that Section 154 of the Constitution indicates that we and the province are supposed to, provincial government are supposed to support municipalities. At the time of the time frame of the annual report, yes, the state of local government report was done, and it indicated that 64 municipalities are dysfunctional. We had criteria and that were used to classify them. And at that time, I can indicate that when we started, we were coming from a low base in terms of going into those municipalities as a coherent team between us and the province. But I want to assure the members here that the multidisciplinary team that has been established between ourselves, led by ourselves and National Treasury, is at work, doing its best to try and deal with all the challenges that we're having in these municipalities that are dysfunctional. At any given time, members, the support teams are the cohorts of the support team that are in the provinces. Here are the stakeholders. It is COCTA in the province, it is Provincial Treasury, it is DWS, it is the Department of Environmental Affairs, it is DBSA, and it is SALGA, it is MISA. And then of late, we have now also, the national departments are now also coming to the party in terms of directly becoming part of the team that must now support these municipalities. We can quote examples that we now have in Mangaung, a chairperson, in Inogmujima, in Lekwa. We are now seeing an increase of the support capacity coming into those municipalities. And slowly we are going to be operating. We hope that at our next report to you as members, we'll be reporting to you, having even other departments being part of this particular sitting to also account in terms of the role that they must play in supporting these municipalities. I just thought I shared that with you. And then also lastly, that there is quarterly reporting that they must do, these municipalities. And then we as national and provincial government are tightening ourselves in terms of structural to ensure that we can then begin to hold them to account and also take issues of consequence management and track them much more closer to ensure that there are consequences for those where there are problems in these municipalities. I hope I have covered as much as the questions that were raised. Thank you, DJ. Thanks.
Thank you, Mpo. Will you allow me, please, Chairperson? I thought I should then go to the CWP issues and call upon Mr. Pretorius if there was anything else that he needed to add.
Thank you, DG, and good afternoon, Honourable Chairperson, members, our Deputy Ministers and colleagues. I think to start off with, Honourable Nkalipi, you raised a very important point about looking at the root cause of what is it that went wrong with the CWP. And I think if we go back far enough in history and we see when the CWP was conceived, it operated at a very small scale. And it worked very well. There was an evaluation done on the CWP, I think, around 2014, and it showed that there's a real benefit for the CWP, to the community and to the individuals participating in the CWP. And I think that to an extent also talks to the cost-benefit analysis, that if correctly implemented, the CWP can and will have a very significant impact on poverty and inequality. What went wrong is then it was scaled up. And it was scaled up without scaling up the corresponding capacity in the department itself. So when I joined the department 2 years ago, there were 18 people in the CWP branch. Now 18 people managing or trying to manage 223 sites and 6,000 sub-sites is not possible. So, which is why until we come up with a different model, we have no choice but to have some form of implementing agent. But that then was the second root cause, is that the policy that guided implementing agents was extremely weak. It basically gave implementing agents carte blanche. And that is where one of the material irregularities come from, is that implementing agents every quarter was just paid a bunch of money. And there was very weak controls to make sure that they account for that money before new funds are paid. So 3 years ago, that balance was 237 million rand at the end of the financial year, where we didn't know what it was for. So that came down to 62 million. It's now, at the end of the last financial year, it was 18 million rand. And some of that is then relates to implementing agents that have left. So we are at the point now, and I think that also talks to the issue about the not implementing our audit action plans. And maybe we are too strict on ourselves, because we don't say, okay, we've done everything, we've implemented. We wait for those controls to be tested until we say we are done. So it's the same with the material irregularities. We have, on the new contracts, don't pay advances. We've got a completely different system in place to make sure that we don't end up in a situation again where implementing agents is given money. But then also we implemented significant controls on procurement. And now that related again in underspending. Because we said to implementing agents, above a certain value, you first send the procurement documents to us before you go out to market. And then once you've gone out to market and you come back, before you award, you send it to us so we can make sure that it's regular, it was done correctly. And then we found that every time we get documents, they're wrong. So we had to have this back and forth between us and the implementing agents to almost teach them suddenly how to procure, because in the previous process there was never a test to see whether they can actually procure. Do they have people in place that can do government procurement? Because government procurement is completely different from private sector procurement. And we found that these implementing agents simply don't have the capacity to procure in a government compliant way. So that led to delays. It led to the participants not having enough PPE. It led to underspending. But we thought that that was a necessary evil because we cannot allow implementing agents to just continue spending money and to continue procuring in the way that procurement was done. And maybe it touches on the other root cause. As the program grew, obviously it became more attractive for other purposes. As the budgets increased, it became more attractive for other purposes. And we find this in particular in the procurement area, where the way in which contracts were awarded in the past was really, I don't know what language I'm supposed to use when it's recorded, but it was really suspect. So hopefully we've addressed all of those. I think another issue that's raised now is for instance, deceased participants. So it's correct, we have a timesheet that has to be signed. There's a timesheet that should be signed. That timesheet is captured on a system, an electronic system. It's verified to make sure that there is a signed timesheet, and then the payment is processed. So what we find is, and we have the links with Home Affairs. They were brought in, I think, more than a year ago. We have the links with Persol to make sure that we verify before we make payments. But what we found was that a deceased participant signed a timesheet after the date of passing on. Now that's corruption. That's fraud. I mean, there are lots of other things you can say, but it's not possible for somebody to sign a... So what happens is that the participant would come at the beginning of the month and sign the timesheet for the whole month. Now we have to trust the implementing agents to say that this is now on you. In the past, they were not punished for this. We said it's on you. It will be deducted from your project management fee base, so you won't get project management fees on those payments, and we'll deduct the full amount from your account. What we've seen now is that it's come down significantly. So there is the small portion where the death is only reported maybe a month or 2 months later, but it still doesn't explain why. How can somebody sign a document after they passed on? Because we all know that's physically impossible. So we have approached National Treasury when we approached them in relation to the tender to have discussions around where we disagree with the AG on the tender. We've also said there's a number of other issues we want to discuss, including how do we do now, what do we do with implementing agents exactly as suggested? Do we blacklist them? Can we blacklist the implementing agent if they say, no, it's their employees that did this, and they've taken disciplinary action against their employees? And that's the discussion we will be having with National Treasury. And then one of the other root causes was systems. And I think the late payment of participants that was for months and months and months and months did not stop. Every single month they were paid late. And we had a lot of engagement with SITA to understand what is the problem with the system that we keep on paying late. And eventually we found out that it's not necessarily the SITA system. There was one weak link in the department. So it became a people issue. And that person also didn't do the checks as they were required to do in terms of deceased participants. That person didn't do the checks as they were required to do in terms of checking for Persol participants. So we suspended that official, we handed the function over to someone else, and immediately it improved. The past 3 months there were no late payments. The only people that are paid late are people that change their bank accounts without informing us. So we've gone from the majority of participants not being paid before the end of the month, where now I hope you've not received any complaints in the past 3 months. Because I know in the past 3 months we've paid all participants on time, with the exception of those, it could be 100 or 120 or 90 depending on the month, where they went and changed their banking details and didn't inform us, or didn't inform us in time, or they informed us after the pay RAM was already loaded. So sometimes it's a very simple solution. Sometimes it's a complex solution, but I think in total what we've seen in the CWP is that we have slowly reduced the number of findings, we've slowly reduced the severity of the findings, and what we are primarily left with now is fixing the past. So the assets, we've got assets going back 10 years. Implementing agents have changed hands, they all wash their hands and say the asset wasn't there when I got there. And it becomes extremely difficult to hold implementing agents accountable for assets that's just gone. There was no proper asset management system. It was done on a spreadsheet. Now, a spreadsheet can be edited by anybody. So it is trying to fix the history of what went wrong in the CWP, but I don't know. I hope that at least with assets we'll be able to get there by the end of this financial year, with all the other issues that the AG raised, with all the other material irregularities. We fixed the future already. So we've got systems in place. There are no more prepayments. PM fees are calculated every month based on a very specific formula that can be verified every month. Our issues that are remaining are with the old contracts. I see Cassius nodding, so I hope that means he agrees. Honourable Kalipi, we've sent, I think, the list of NPOs with the budgets allocated to them per site. I think we've sent it to Parliament, at least since I've been here, we've sent it twice. But we can send it again. I mean, that's not an issue. I'm currently implementing agents. So you've got 6 implementing agents at the moment. Tembaletu Development, South Africa Youth Movement, Green Development Foundation, Insika Foundations, BOCA, and National Youth Development Agency. So there are 6. There was, yes, in the past there was 11, of which 3 was eventually their contracts were terminated. And I think this talks to now the issue we have where we disagree with the fundamental assertion by the AG that our criteria is too strict on the tender. So in the past, our criteria was not strict. So implementing agents would be appointed. They can't do government procurement. They don't have the infrastructure to manage big projects like this. And you end up with a situation where they can't do what they're supposed to do. We have to terminate their contracts, or we end up with all the other issues that I've highlighted before. So in the previous tender, then we made the criteria much stricter to say we want to very clearly see that you are able to manage similar projects. Now, I agree with the agent that that does not necessarily result in us appointing a broad enough spectrum of implementing agents. But it's the government procurement process, which is the 3rd item on our agenda with National Treasury. Is there a different way to go about this? That maybe we can get a departure or come up with a different way to procure implementing agents, and does it have to be NPOs? Why can't a provincial government not be an implementing agent? Why can't a municipality not be an implementing agent? So why do we have to focus on NPOs? There are many other ways of getting the support we need and the eyes on the ground we need than to appoint implementing agents in the way we are doing now. So that is what we are doing currently. We are trying to engage National Treasury on that. And hopefully that will in future solve the problem, because as the Minister indicated, that is not the best model. And maybe what we should be doing in future is have provincial governments or provincial departments be implementing partners, not necessarily implementing agents. And in certain cases where it's possible, have metros or municipalities be implementing agents or implementing partners, so that it stays within government. Because at least when you have a government entity, it's audited by the Auditor General. The implementing agent, 9 out of 10 times, is audited by some audit company that will simply check if their financial statements balance. They don't go into the procurement processes. There's no such thing as irregular expenditure in the private sector. So those kind of things are not audited in the private sector, so they're not audited when they audit implementing agents. When we have government entities and agencies supporting us in implementing the CWP, we solve that problem because they have the same stringent audit requirements that we have. Then, Honourable Mpumsa, on the agrarian program, when the agrarian program was established, these very same implementing agents that were appointed on very loose criteria and that did not include any agriculture expertise were then asked to implement agriculture projects. So what we did from the beginning of last year, from April of last year, we did 2 things. We first visited every site, and we asked the participants and the communities and the traditional leaders. We took all the invoices. We put all the invoices together for a program, and then we went there and said, okay, according to this, they bought 20 kilograms of seed and 50 trees and 2 tractors. Where is it? Okay, sometimes they will agree, yes, these things were delivered, we planted the seeds, we planted the trees. Other times they'll say, we've never seen these things. So we had to go back to the finances and to the invoices and to say to the implementing agents, we are not paying you any fees for these projects until you've accounted for everything you've bought. We also saw that the design of the programs were very poor. They were developed by people, or the projects, developed by people who didn't have agriculture expertise. So we've now gone through the entire 34 projects to have experts look at the project, look at the history of the project, look at the sustainability of the project, and ultimately we want that project off our books. We want to hand it over to a company or to a community or to some form, to a cooperative, so that that is now managed and run by the community, not by us. That's where we want to end up. So we asked this, we are now developing project plans and proper execution plans for all of these projects. And we've started funding some of them again now. So there was about a year where we put no funding into the projects, unless it was emergency funding, for instance, if the pigs at a project needed injections or a certain kind of feed or something, we would procure that. So we stopped on these projects to make sure that we have proper project plans in place. So hopefully that will then solve the problem going forward, but it is something that this department doesn't have the capacity. There are no agriculture specialists here. Except, I don't know who has their own farms, but there are no people in the department that can manage agriculture projects. So I think that was also the issue about the people issue that the DG alluded to. When you start a project like this, if you don't have the backup system to make sure that you can properly implement it, then you shouldn't start it. And it's a classical problem we all have in government. We are all underfunded. So with the small amount of staff we have, how can we possibly run a 4 billion rand project or program? It's very, very difficult. And maybe next time when Parliament votes money, either shut it down or give us enough money to implement it. Because ultimately it's Parliament that gives us the money or doesn't give us the money. I don't know if there's anything on the CWP specifically I missed. Maybe just on the remodeling. And maybe there's a misconception about what remodeling means. Remodeling is not an event, it's a process. So a lot of the administrative things that we had to change in the program, we've already changed. They're not perfect yet, we are improving, we're hoping to have a new policy in place again in a few months' time to learn from the implementation of the previous policy. And from an administrative point of view, I think we've made a lot of progress on remodeling. Where we've made very little progress is on the impact side, on the real impact on poverty, inequality, and real impact on communities. And I think that is now also a frustration, and it's a completely accurate frustration, is when we pay participants, apart from the actual money they receive in their pockets, which I don't know from a cost-benefit analysis, more than 80% of the money of the program ends up in the participants' pockets. So apart from that, does it benefit the broader community? Does it empower participants to actually learn a skill through useful work and appropriate training? Does it empower them to then go and do their own thing so they can exit the program? Legally, we do not exit participants. We don't say you're allowed here to stay here for 2 years. It's not like EPWP, where you work on a specific project and when you are done, you are done. CWP's model is different. It's supposed to be sustainable basic income. But we need to get to the point where we exit participants, not through a forced system, but where they simply say, I now have the skills and the knowledge to actually go and do something where I can earn much more money than the CWP. So I want to leave the program. And I think that's where we're trying to get, but also our capacity internally to drive that was not enough. And again, if we start partnering with provinces and metros or municipalities and other government entities, like MISA, for instance, there's a lot more we can do together with MISA to use CWP participants when it comes to infrastructure maintenance. There's a lot more we can do. And also to teach participants through that process then the appropriate skills to then actually say, no, we are done with CWP. We can make our own money now. We're going to make a lot more money than this. So I think that is the process with what we envisaged through remodeling. And the administrative part was quick and easy. And not that it's perfect, but there's a lot that we've done there. It's the impact on poverty and inequality that we need to address. DG, I think I have dealt with all the other issues related to CWP. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just needed to respond to the disaster management questions. I hope Ms. Anay Brevier is in the room, and then thereafter we can go to the CEO of MISA. Thanks.
Thank you, DG, and good afternoon, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable Members. Yes, with regards to the disaster management related questions, I first want to respond to the question about fire services, and I think, yes, indeed, Honourable Groenewald, you are correct. There is some serious challenges with regards to fire services in the country. As you know, it is a function of local government in terms of the constitution. And at a national level, we administer the legislation, but we also try to assess the municipalities to look at what the capacity challenges are and make recommendations. Unfortunately, we only have 2 people at the national level responsible for fire services, and the one position is actually currently vacant. So we also have our own capacity challenges to deal with. But we have also tried to work with the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, because they are responsible for the Veld and Forest Fires Act, and they also have responsibilities specifically with regards to the fire protection associations. So we're trying to work with them to ensure that there is collaboration with the municipalities and the fire protection associations to ensure integrated fire management. It must also be noted that the fire services are dependent on the effective functioning of municipalities, especially in terms of providing water, and that they are also dependent on other services provided by municipalities. So from our side, we are working towards providing that support, specifically in terms of legislation, and we are also trying to work with National Treasury to assist in recalculating the equitable share to make specific provision for fire services in municipalities. With regards to the disaster management plans, I think you've indicated the numbers. Yes, we are currently having a total of 154 disaster management plans. In terms of the legislation, each municipality is supposed to develop a disaster management plan. Fortunately, we have most of the district municipalities that have submitted their plans, 40 of them, 40 of the 44, and the majority of the metros have also submitted. Majority, yes, is one. Buffalo City is still working on theirs. But we must also indicate that we, at the National Centre, we assess the plans and then we provide feedback to the municipalities in terms of the plans. And we have noted that many of the plans are outdated and that they do not, review the plans at a regular basis. What we do from our side is that we have developed guidelines to assist them in developing their disaster management plans. We also have workshops and consultative sessions with them to understand what their needs of support are, and we're working with other stakeholders as well. This is also very important for us as part of the IDP. It is also a legislative requirement that the disaster management plan of each municipality is a core component of the IDP, and eventually it must also inform the one plans. So I think this is the process that we really want to encourage everybody, to participate, and even the AG, if we can get the support of the AG in terms of assessing municipalities in terms of their compliance with regards to that. We will also again issue a circular to remind municipalities to submit their plans. Then just in terms of the general capacity, yes, indeed you are correct in your observations that there is a capacity challenge with regards to disaster management in the country. It has also been identified by Cabinet, and there has been a request that there should be an overall of the disaster management system in the country to review and look at how we can improve the system. And the system of disaster management is not only about the National Disaster Management Center. If I can just remind you, the National Disaster Management Center only has 33 people in the center. And we also currently have some vital vacancies at the management level, which we are addressing. But it is also about the capacity of disaster management in each organ of state. Once again, the legislation provides for each organ of state to develop a disaster management plan and put systems in place to deal with disasters in their respective areas of responsibility. So hopefully we will be reviewing that system in collaboration with the Department of Public Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, and we intend to have a report to Cabinet by the end of the financial year in terms of the review of the disaster management system in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will answer some questions. I have okay. I have colleagues from MISA who are here, the CFO, Ms. Fezeganombembe, who have Refilo Matabate, and we have Mr. Mchali. They will help me to answer some of the questions. With regard to the point raised by Honorable Mkalipi around the aging infrastructure, and how is MISA engaging to address this challenge? It's a real challenge for the country, and it requires efforts beyond MISA. It's a huge problem for the country. In KZN, we worked with KZN to do a detailed conditions assessment of their infrastructure, and which culminated into a water and sanitation master plan. So we're working with KZN. We actually developed the terms of reference for them to conduct that work. And the results are such that the investment that is required, it will never be funded with the current flows that are going to municipality, and think will make a dent. So it requires some special attention for the country to say we've got to put maybe funding aside to target certain priority assets and replace those assets. Otherwise, if we think we'll through the current funding flows, address the problem of aging infrastructure, I think I will be lying to the committee to say that we can in the near future. But it requires government to be intentional about it and take decisive steps to address it. We've done assessments, we have reports, we have done master plans, we have done, as we're reporting here, you see we've done operations and maintenance plans for many municipalities, but they simply do not have resources to fund the plans. And where we can, we come in as MISA and support using our own operational budget, because we ourselves are not capitalized. So we're using our own operational budget to respond to some of the situation. Now, There was a question about, I think it's Honorable Grunewald, about what are we doing, going to do, to address those municipalities who failed to submit plans to respond to the green drop and the blue drop. I think the answer is almost similar to the answer I've given. Because if you look into the root causes, it's exactly because municipalities in this country, for whatever reason, the funding was just focused on new infrastructure for a very long time. And there was no real effort to make sure that we balance the funding of new infrastructure with the funding for operations and management of existing infrastructure. And it's something that we started to address through the reforms that we initiated in the previous financial year, where we said we have got to make sure that MIG makes provision for planning, asset planning, as well as refurbishment and the operation maintenance of infrastructure, because municipalities, they cannot raise their own revenue to be able to respond to the challenges of road repairs and maintenance. So hence now, if you look at the MIG program, there is now 5% that has been set aside for asset planning. But the challenge, municipalities are not really taking up this and prioritizing asset planning. And we've been working with them to push them that they prioritize it because it is important. And also there is 10% that has been set aside now to actually implement the repairs and maintenance, which we are working. And those are reforms that we have put together, trying to address the challenge around asset decay that is taking place. And with water and sanitation, we are working together. They actually submitted to us the list of those municipalities that have not submitted reports. And ourselves, together with SALGA and well as water and sanitation, we have been meeting and we put together a support package to support those municipalities to prepare those plans and make sure that they respond to the green and the drop and the blue drop report. Then coming to the question, I think Nalbim Simang just noted that there is no good story. Perhaps there was no question. But what I can say, I think we submitted a report which was requested. I'm not sure, I think it was yourself, Honorable Grunewald, of boreholes that we've done and some water projects in the country and their functionality. We did quite a detailed report which we submitted, which shows all the water projects that we've done as MISA and their state of functionality and how many households that benefited and so forth. And I regard those for me as a good story in the sense that most of those communities that we had assisted didn't have access to water at all. Today they have access to water. I don't know. And also, if you go to Mondlo, we've done quite a beautiful water treatment facility there. It will be good if the committee could visit and see the facility we've done in Mondlo. And also in Ward 5 in Pogwe. And we've done a very good water project. We are now finalizing a sewer reticulation plant in Ward 5. And then the question around Makanda, yeah, it's a sore point for me because we've been in Makanda. We've been there working with them. Actually, their engineering department, some point because they didn't have capacity, was led by our chief engineer. So we put all the plans that are required for a functional municipality to function. But again, the issue of resources to finance the plans is not there. And we've been working with water and sanitation to deal with the issue of water. And it's unfortunate that the contractor got liquidated when they were already on site and has affected the performance now in terms of the water in that municipality. But I know that they issued out a tender now in August 2022 to replace that contractor. So, but we are there working with them, and we'll continue working with them, hoping that at some point Makanda will really deal with their problems as well, because the problems are beyond technical. They need the leadership of Makanda to turn the situation around. We can only do so much. And on the question of St. John's, Honorable Mpumza, yes, we have a report which I think I will share with you, because we sent a team to go and check about. There was issues that we have raised about St. John's, illegal electricity, people buying illegal electricity, something, and the water. We've compiled a report. So we'll be sending that report to you with solutions in terms of what we think needs to be done. With regard to the boreholes, I think it's in Alfrenzo. The team is also working on that. We'll give you a report in terms of our support to make sure that they have boreholes, the community that you have escalated to us. The question by Honorable Direko was acknowledging the good work that MISA is doing, but it must be balanced with the service delivery. I agree, but here I have got a report that shows the work that we are doing, a listing that shows what we have been doing to support municipalities in the country. It's quite detailed in terms of the actual work that we have done. And in some cases, you might not really notice the change until maybe you remove MISA there, because most of these municipalities are relying on MISA to sustain their technical departments. Now, maybe until you remove MISA, then that's when you will see that actually MISA was adding a lot of value there. So with the legal capacity that we have, but we are trying by all means to stretch ourselves to the limit. But of course, we need the committee to also assist us to make sure that we get the necessary resources to be able to effect the kind of impact that the committee expects of us. The money that was with surrendered to Treasury, we did not succeed to get that money back. So we decided to abandon the fight with Treasury, and we are continuing. But at least with regard to the money that we requested now for the 2021-2022, they approved. And the impact, of course, there was a slow delay, in some of the projects that were planned to do. Some we had to delay because we didn't have the resources to do them. But those are now prioritized in the current financial year. Honorable Mamkize just received a report that a contractor has been appointed in Msinga to address the water project, which was called by disaster. I'm happy that you are acknowledging that the problem was fixed by us before, and now floods came in, and then we are in this problem. But our teams are working with the municipality to solve the problem. With regard to the Mnambiti and Tukela, where there is no water, we are going to follow up on this with regard to the police station and the hospital. Honorable Adebe, on the road rehabilitation in Makanda, the report that we have shows that the quality of work there was top, but we've got an underlying problem of water pipes. And I have just forwarded you a report. I sent to Honorable Mpumza through WhatsApp as well. If you can share it with the committee. On the WhatsApp group. But that report, it gets into the detail in terms of the investigations that were done by engineers. And you will see it's a localized kind of a problem in two streets. I think, in fact, it's a Hill Street and Somerset Street. But the Somerset one, if you look at it, there was a water pipe burst that happened on the side of the road. And that was then fixed by the municipality. But when they were fixing, they damaged the road and did not fix the road. So it's a damage caused by those who were fixing the water pump burst that happened on the side of the road. Then if you go to the one in Hill Street, I was there last week, you will see there's a crocodile crack that is happening there. And you can trace it. Now the report, it says there is a pipe there, a water pipe, and that crack, it follows that pipe. And the assessment shows that that those pipes are leaking. As a result of that, it then affects the surface of the road. But because I was there and I saw the problem, I then said to the team, let's take advantage of the fact that we are still in a defect liability period and push the contractor, if we can, to fix that thing. Because as you correctly said, maybe the engineers, when they were doing investigations, they ought to have visualized this, picked up that underground problem, though they did in many areas. But apparently there, when I checked with the consultant, they're saying no, even the problem, it only arose now after 10 months. Before that, it was not there. They don't know, but the infrastructure is just having challenges there. But I said they must look at it, and I'm going to ensure that it is fixed, because it's not a big, it's not like the whole says, I was there, it's less than 5% of the road that needs to be corrected. But we will make sure that we assist and address the problem. But the road itself, I'm sure you were there, it's quality work that was done. Thank you very much. I'm not sure.
Honourable members, in terms of questions relating to traditional affairs, there's a question that Honourable Mpumza raised, quite correctly arising from the oversight visit of the Portfolio Committee to the Eastern Cape, focusing specifically on customary initiation practices there. I think just to emphasize that in terms of the legislation itself, the Customary Initiation Act supersedes the provincial pieces of legislation. So when it comes to the issue of age, for example, the age as determined in the Customary Initiation Act is the age that applies. And it's because during the time when the Act was being consulted on and was being taken through cabinet and so on, there was a very deliberate position that you cannot have different ages of defining children, one in the Children's Act and then another one in the Customary Initiation Act. And so the age that obtains is the age that is contained in the Children's Act, and that's the age that has been adopted in the Customary Initiation Act. So I know that during the last season of initiation, there's a particular province, not Eastern Cape, but there's a particular province that even formally wrote to the minister to say, can we lower it? And her response was an emphatic no, because it's there in legislation, and there has to be compliance with that age. So I think the critical issue then, and it arises from the oversight of visit of the committee, it's just strengthening awareness raising. The National Initiation Oversight Committee had started with that work, but in a sense the work was disrupted by the terms of office of the houses coming to an end. So the process of reconstitution of the houses has happened at local level and provincial level. We just left with the last step now for the National House to be reconstituted. And the link is that there are members of the National House who then have to be members of the National Initiation Oversight Committee. So I think that's the critical issue to emphasize, that it's going to have awareness raising, because there can be inconsistencies when it comes to these two issues. The other challenge, of course, with the Eastern Cape has been the membership to the PICC, because the PICC in the Eastern Cape comprises mainly members of the Executive Committee. And I think with all good intentions to have, to convene members of the Executive Committee, of the Provincial Executive as a PICC, it becomes difficult, because you're really convening a cabinet committee in a sense. In other provinces, it is not like that, and the composition, as guided by the Customary Initiation Act, has been adhered to. And from discussions that we've been having with them, they have realized the difficulty with the model that they are using, and have indicated that they would also want to change that, to make sure that they have a much more agile PICC, so that it can actually then do its proper work when it comes to oversight. There is a second question raised by Honorable Direko, which is in terms of financial support to different traditional leadership structures in different provinces, which is correct. It's something that has been there for a long time, and it's in a sense also because there hasn't been any norms and standards set at a national level, which indicate, for example, what kind of budgetary support should be given to traditional councils. So in the process then, what happened was that different provinces used different approaches, leading to the inconsistencies that you see. What is useful here now is the process that Deputy Minister Vapela is very close to now, the process led by the Deputy President, where he is leading an interministerial task team. The Honourable Minister spoke about it in the morning, going from province to province to talk about critical issues of concern to the institution of traditional leadership, and this is one of them. So where the Deputy President has been, there has been a very clear commitment to say, let's see how we can address this area. It's something that obviously will not be resolved overnight, but just an example that we discussed with Deputy Minister Vapela the other day, that after the visit to the Free State, where there was a grant of, I think it was 30,000 rand given to each traditional council. After that visit, now it's been increased to 60,000 rand. For principal traditional leaders, it's been increased to 100,000 rand. It is still low compared to the trailblazer here, which is in Mpumalanga, where they are at 350,000 per annum per traditional council. But at least it's showing movement. The same concerns have been raised in the other provinces where the Deputy President has been to engage with the institution of traditional leadership on these matters. So it's an intervention that we see assisting us, because these are matters that have been on the table for a long time, and we've been continuing to raise these issues. But the other part of it is the opportunity that now arises with the Traditional and Question Leadership Act, because now it allows the minister to set certain norms and standards which the Framework Act didn't allow the minister to do, especially when it comes to issues of resourcing. But the approach that we've taken is that let's not do it in a vacuum. Let's get a sense of what are these things that provinces are spending on, what are they costing them, what are their experiences on the ground, and so on. So we've got teams of officials who are going from one province to another. They spend between 2 and 3 days in each province. They sit down with line function, they sit down with finance officials, and they look at this costs very in a very focused manner. And the expectation is that coming out of this, we will then have an informed position where we can advise the minister on norms and standards that the minister can then set when it comes to resourcing. So those are the two interventions that I thought I should add in terms of the questions that have been raised. Thanks, Honourable Chair.
Looks like it's the end of the responses. I can only take follow-ups now. Oh, okay. You want them to make follow-up? Yeah, so that you deal with the rest. You be the first, Mom Kids. Number 2, Honorable Mbumza. Number 3, Honorable Adebe. Number 4, Honorable Mkalipe. Number 5, Honorable Space. Yes, let's
okay.
move.
Thank you, Chairperson. Maybe because I came late, can I be assisted about the name of the gentleman in front of me, so that even the position, so that when I'm addressing him, I'll be in line with him. Is a DDG or is a what? The man in front of me. Oh, it's Victorious, Mr. Oh, okay. Thank you for the help. Chairperson, thank you, Chair. Chairperson, my follow-up to the Mr. Pretorius is that Mr. Pretorius said, because of the person who signed when he was in 6 feet underground, he signed to get money to be paid in the CWP. For that, the official was suspended. How many officials are suspended for that? And it happened, how many months or how many years happened, that thing? Because it's not the first time we talk about this. Another thing, Mr. Pretorius talked about a tender, which means this CWP is holding a master by the master who's the tenderpreneur. I want to know, Chair, when the official, the poor official is suspended, where is the tenderpreneur? Is suspended. The tender is terminated. Because we cannot, Chairperson, leave this thing hanging. It's good as an official to be suspended, a tenderpreneur continuing milking the department money or government money because it's plowing back to their boss. I don't know where is it, the boss. Is plowing back, she or he is plowing back, but she or he, poor official must be suspended. That is good. No, it's not good. If you suspend that official, you must terminate the contract of the tenderpreneur. Because the official doesn't get any money. The money is going to the tenderpreneur. The first person to be suspended is the tenderpreneur. Is a tender to be terminated. After that, the tender will come back and you will come back and suspend the official. Not start with the official. Because the official doesn't take any decision in any boardroom. It's just being told, sign this, sign that. When he signed this and that, he must be suspended for that. And I also, Chairperson, there is a problem, Chair. I know there is a problem, Chair. This problem is keep on coming and accumulating. If money, the government money will be eaten. After the government money is eaten, the person must be suspended. Nothing following that person. Which means every board will come and take money. When he is finished to take money, they must be suspended, call another one, come back and come here and take money. When you finish to take money, go, call another one. No. We must not allow this. Sometimes, I want to agree with Honorable Mkalipi to say, sometimes as members of parliament, you must go and open case, and so that, what we see in Zulu, when you shine, we are velu mnikazi. You must beat a dog so that you see the owner. We want to see this owner. Who's owning this what you call this implementing agent? Who's the owner of the implementing agent? I want to see it. We need to beat the owner so that we'll see the dog. We need to beat the dog so that we'll see the owner. Sorry. So, another thing, Chairperson, I want to talk with the DG, not DG, of, what you call, of traditional leaders. DG, in KZN, many traditional leaders are dying. They are shooting dead. What the department is saying about that? Why the department does not defend these chiefs? Because ukufaka umuntu akusinto enhle, akusinto emnandi. No matter a chief or inkosi or umuntu nje ofana nami. But it's not good to see a person dead. The department must be worried about that. They are leading the dirty department. How many chiefs have been shot and dead, but we didn't hear anything about their safety? What is the department saying about that? Because we do have police in South Africa. If police are shot, you can call the department and police will say, hey, recruit, there are many kids who graduate. They can work to be a police, to go and defend people in the rural area, even in the urban areas. But I didn't see and I didn't hear anything about the defense and the safety of the chiefs. Thank you, Chairperson.
I was going to say follow-ups must not be long, like we are starting. Number 2.
Chair, my question now goes to disaster management. It's a follow-up question on the presentation. That the report says that the challenges in the flooding in KZN, in some instances, there had been no disaster risk reduction plans in place by municipalities. And if I got it correct, that some municipalities in the country are actually not responding as prompt as desired by the Disaster Management Center to put up such plans. What remedial action does the Disaster Management Center employ to ensure that municipalities are complying? Secondly, perhaps if you are looking at these disasters, you have a situation in the region around the Karoo, where year in and year out, you get those communities that are confronted by drought year in, year out. And you begin to ask yourself, MISA, disaster, and municipalities. Why is it that there are no disaster risk reduction strategies being developed and being components of the water and sanitation master plans? Because we are often reacting, there's disaster, there's day zero, as if we didn't know that here in those regions, because of their positioning and their situation, they are confronted by drought year in, year out. Then we are always reacting and reacting. Why is it so? And what is the disaster management center doing together with MISA around that? The last chair, we say we must not be long. I was thinking aloud as to the DCOC has achieved 73% of the planned targets. My question now is to DCOC. What are these persistent stubborn challenges that present themselves to actually prevent the department from achieving 100% of their planned targets?
Member Honorable Hadebe.
Thank you, Chair. The first follow-up, it's in relation to the outdated plans. So, in essence, the National Disaster Management Center, you have 121 or 54, 154 plans that were submitted, and out of that, you still have outdated ones. How many are outdated? 2, I'm more interested in eThekwini because it's a more recent case that was affected by disaster. Was the plan of eThekwini municipality in line with the prescript in terms of the legislation, or was it also outdated? Don't you have any recourse? Nyan Kwehlelis? No, don't hit, just rub her at the back. Yeah, no, Chair, let me continue. Those that have not submitted, any consequence management that have been effected, or you don't have any recourse to ensure that they meet the prescriptions in terms of the legislation? I've also asked a question about the your annual report, DCOC on page 99 or slide 99, table 4.81, about whether your performance reward is justifiable or not. You did not respond to that, the 1.2 million performance reward. Can you please respond to that? The next follow-up, Chair, Mr. Pretorius, you're saying remodeling is the process, not an event. Fair enough, I accept and fully concur with you. And the reason why you opted to remodel was to fix certain challenges that you have confronted with. Sitting where I am currently, I have not seen any improvement. Meaning whatever process that you have put in place in remodeling has not produced the desired outcomes. Differently put, what has been the positive outcomes on your remodeling process, and for how long is this process going to last? Since we don't want an open-ended process that will take forever until someone comes back. You have not also responded to the cost-benefit analysis again. It seems as if this question it's a thorny issue and no one wants to respond to such. Your response again of people within this CWP coming to work and signing the attendance register for the entire month. You know what that means? It's not only those who are deceased who did that. Everyone comes and signs for the entire month and go and sit at home. You were only lucky because some of them died and then you could only pick it up that actually here we're being robbed, we're being defrauded. When I'm saying, it was those unfortunate circumstances and situations which led to you discovering that actually here people come and sign for the entire month and then they sit at home. The question is, who is supervising these people? And how deep is this crisis? Because you only found out about those that have passed on. How many who are still alive who are benefiting from such? Have you bothered yourself to ask those questions? Have you investigated the matter? I ask the question, is this not a criminal case? They are defrauding the state. Others, when money is stolen at Pala, it's a serious issue. Others are stealing life. And it's slapped in the wrist, hey, we're going to... what's good for the geese is good for the gander. It's 4.4 million. To me, that's I'm set for life if you can give me that money and say I must pay it back. Yeah. What I'm trying to say, it's unacceptable that they will steal and they are still in an... And I ask, which implementing agency are responsible? We want names. You only said there are 6 within you, but I don't know why. Is it difficult to say this Madlanduna trading is responsible? It's not? Okay, cool. I guess we'll be able to. Lastly, is it DTA, ne? I'm not sure whether you have responded to the question about the finding of the public protector in relation to the heads of traditional affairs. You've just said that there were findings. You did not indicate whether those findings in your annual plan. Can you elaborate? Are you aware of what I'm referring to? All right. Please elaborate and enlighten us in relation to the public protector finding regarding the heads of traditional affairs in provinces. Ucheke utesinga tatiskate site ngiyabonga. Let me submarine.
Ndiyabulela Chairperson. Ayahlekisa amalungu akho leli committee afika khuluma ixesha elide. Bese zothi and uchair uthe esekhulume akhuluma. Chair, thanks for the response from the department and the MISA, whom I asked questions to. First thing is that although we got responses from the department, I thought that maybe others, like the gentleman who was sitting here, Mpo, DG, in Pretoria, maybe you must take Pretoria and sit over there, and you must sit over there, because we are too tight now. So I even asked Honorable Begu, Mpo is not the one who was sleeping at one meeting on a video. Okay. And he protected you, and he said, no, it's not you. Yeah. So I'm saying, Chair, on the issue of, remember, Babu Mpumza even come after me and postulated exactly what I was trying to figure out, DG, when you talk about the reorganization. You didn't touch on that one. We really want to know how are you restructuring your department in order to arrive on our concerns to say that terms of capacity, and the department does not play its role that it's supposed to play. So if you are not going to respond to that one, we are going to have a problem, DG. Please respond, because even in your presentation, you were just 2 sentences and demonstrating a good English, of which Honorable Msimang told you that now we are not interested in a good English, because our people on the ground, they don't care about English. They want a service delivered. So we want to assist you when people are asking us to say, no, they have told us that they are doing, they are organizing themselves, they are restructuring in order to meet your expectations as people on the ground. That is one. We also accept your apology in terms of the issue. Even the chair of the portfolio committee, Uzibabantu manje, where he comes from, of which is unethical for us as members of parliament. Issues from the community must always be attended to, but if we don't have answers as well, like Honorable Khatib was saying that he have never felt so useless as a member of committee after the official from the Department of Treasury did what he did. So we note that and we accept that it was a mistake from your part, and it was during December. This matter started during December because elections was around November. And can you imagine December time? People wants to use their money for their families and so on. Yeah, but we still October this year. But we note your report, and I think there's a progress. But we have to give you feedback as people who get those things from the people. On the issue of special investigating unit, we note that you have taken all those cases to Hawks and them, but we have never heard anything from them. Maybe Chair will propose as the committee, because we once have that cluster, we once have a report from them, because there are other cases that is cause for concern in the committee. Maybe we have to ask them to come again to update, so we can also make a follow-up on behalf of the department as members of the committee. I don't want to say what we discussed during lunchtime with the CEO of MESA, but I think we can even add that issue, because he also told us with other members what is happening in regards to his case. Maybe to get the clarity, it will be also critical to have those people to come back, because there are other cases that are of interest with us. DG, please, as much as you are telling us that this 3.3 billion is historical, you were not even there, maybe you're still working somewhere. But since we are incumbent DG, so everything it comes back to you. So please tell us in details what is happening, even if it happens before your time, the NDA function cancellation of 349,000. But the point that committee members are interested in, who was actioned, there was any action, and then what was the consequences to this effect. And then you must not just say that some of the things happened before your time. You must, when you deal with committee members, you must say the payment that was made on expired contract, this is the status of that case. Air flight cancellation fees of 190,000, what it happens in 2013 or 2014, but as the department, this is the status of the case, and so on and so on and so on. So we can be able, as this committee, to have an account of each and everything. Because if you are going to just give us a summary to say some of the things happens before your time, you are not helping us to know what really happened. I don't know why I was not responded to, Chair, in terms of I raised critical issues on behalf of the poor people, and Babu Mpomza also emphasized on that point. Even Honorable Khatebe, to say disaster. Maybe we don't understand what is disaster, colleagues, especially the department. I think we must be sensitive enough. As I was saying, that when we're talking about the latest floods, which happens in this year in April, we are still having families who are still don't have answers, who are still there on the community halls, abanye bayaxoshwa, they're up and down. Like this unity, yet disaster is like fire extinguishers, the DMs. They just respond when there's a problem. They don't plan. It's like what one of the colleagues from the department was explaining in terms of Section 139, which is the only intervention in the department, citing Section 154 of the Constitution. And I raised that point earlier on to say that, can we also think out of the box, which we are expecting from the department? We can't have only one intervention. And earlier on, I'm sure the Deputy Minister is still going to come, because it needs some political explanations to us. You can't be relying on what is the Constitution is providing on the law. Political solution is also needed, because I'm saying to you, you have said that there are 64 dysfunctional municipalities that you said in terms of the mandate of the department, and through the minister, you have committed yourself that you are going to intervene. But now when we interrogate you, one answer, straight answers, you are quick to say that, but we must not make a mistake of thinking that you can dictate or tell how to run municipalities. But at the same time, we need those answers because it's part of the program in the department. So I'm saying, in short, Chair, let us just have those clarity without fighting, because our aim here, when we go out, we must be able to say the department, what is the plan and what is the way forward. Maybe on the issue of CWP, I don't know, Chair, maybe we have to have another meeting, because the more they explain what is happening, including the new model, etc., the more we have many questions arises. I think we started to interrogate or to engage with this issue long time ago in 2019, when we were just starting this administration in Parliament, where we met somewhere in Western Cape, Babu Pomza, and we had a strategic session with the department. And then even that time, when this presentation was done of the CWP, it was not enough because of time. So some of the things we don't understand as a committee members, we must also acknowledge that. Now we are told that there's a new model that is being implemented. It's also complicated. I was even whispering to my colleague here, out of those workers that you mentioned who are benefiting in this poverty alleviation program, but the people who are managing this program, Mr. Pretorius, is only 6 NGOs. And then you are saying there are 9 provinces and 6 NGOs, and then, I mean, the management of it becomes questionable. But I don't expect you to go into details now. Maybe I'll suggest to the chair to say, maybe at some point, let us have this discussion of this program, because all of us, we have concern, in order for us just to understand clearly. Because even if we can say to the department, there is corruption that is being happening in this program. But at the same time, we have also other experience. For instance, I'm from Ward 53, Emawoti in KZN. I don't know who are those people who are in that program. As much as I support the idea that is one of the intervention, because there's poverty in the country. But when I go to committee meetings, when I'm being called and asked, we have people who are part of this program, you serve at Cooked. I don't know what processes are being followed. So all those things need to be clarified. How do you link this program at a ward level now? Because we also mentioned that there is municipality involved. We don't know how far is municipality goes, and the NPO, what is the NPO's role, and how do you recruit the community now? Remember, all of us, we have a concern of unemployment, poverty, etc. And then when we go to our communities, and then they said, now I'm interested because I'm poor. I can't say that I know this program, it has been clarified to a committee and so on. That's why I am suggesting that maybe at some point, Chair, during our busy time and busy schedules, we must have a clear modeling and details of this program. Thank you very much, Chair. I think for me, is those things. Thanks.
Honourables, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very short. So thank you, Chair. For the first time, we at least got some answers to pertinent questions, and I appreciate that. So I think we need to move from this so that we can actually put this issue to rest. So to the DG, Mr. Pretorius, you will be remembered for a program that didn't fail, that failed if you are not decisive. Because what you've been telling us is you are not the people responsible for the situation that we are in. But you will be remembered for the people that were. And so if you want to come out of this, victorious, you need to actually take some bold decisions. And you've mentioned and admitted earlier on that the NPOs are not the best model. And maybe you should look at provinces and municipalities, which obviously comes with different challenges, knowing how it's being run currently. But maybe, and that's what I want to suggest, that if we can really have this session with you. And what I'm trying to tell you is that we've talked about the 6 agents and 9 provinces. I'm from the Garden Route, but I work in the Klein Karoo. I engage with those people. They have never met this implementing agent. This implementing agent has no relation or association to what it is that is going on and how the people of the Klein Karoo actually function. And comes from a different province, sits somewhere else. So surely they're not in touch with the people. And then you find very good functional NPOs in the area. Maybe they haven't tendered, but maybe your process that you follow to get people to tender, if you were to continue with this program through implementing agents or NPOs, which I think you shouldn't, then it leads to a thorough process in recruiting the people that needs to actually be the ones doing the work. Because then this can work. I am a firm believer that CWP can actually work, but it must be located with the right people within the right institutions. And I promise you it can work. So be bold. Engage with provinces, local municipalities. Let's find it. If we have to say that remodeling is not working, we're stopping it, you will be applauded for that. And you could actually get up and say, we have taken this decision, a 360-degree change, and it's actually working. And people will be happy because they will see there's some form of proactive action and there's a responsiveness that actually focuses on the people. And I'm begging you that to allow us this session with you and learn from best practices. I promise you there are wonderful people out there doing great work, and they need to be the ones who needs to be rewarded, and we need to take them forward, and they need to improve their lives, and it can turn around people's lives. So that is all, Chair, I want to say. I just want to say thank you. I feel better than when I came here. Thank you. Protect me, please. Jim, can you protect me?
Honorable Groenewald.
Thank you, Chair. If Honorable speech was short, then I'll be really short. Chair, I've listened to the responses. What I've heard is we have informed the local government. It's fire is the local government's responsibility, but we have tried to build capacity in terms of that. The equitable share made position for that. We've requested again to submit the plans. CEO of MISA, I hear what you're saying, and it's exactly the same. We're trying to build capacity. We're giving you, as a municipality, all of this information. But if the municipality does not implement, you can do nothing. That's what we're saying to one another. We've got all of these great things. We've got great legislation, great plans, everything, but the local government does not implement these. And I know there's different challenges, but let's start looking at new ways to inform them to do this. Look at a real-time audit document system to implement and finance. Look at different technology that is out there today that can assist, help, and save money. The Auditor General's fees is one of the highest things within the municipality. If we have a real-time audit system within a municipality, it will be 10% of that amount currently. We must look at the function of district municipalities. Are they still playing a role? Mustn't they be taken out? All of these different things, we must look at new initiatives within local government. It doesn't help, we just inform one another that local government has been informed, because they do not implement. So, Chair, thank you. I hope that was short.
Again, DM, so I'm coming to you. Oh, should I go to the DG? Say, yes.
Thank you, Chair, once again, and good afternoon. Perhaps this time I could just ask if the DDGs could then just respond to each of their questions, and I will then come in at the end if still needed. Okay, so maybe let me just direct a bit better. I think the first question, let's respond to the CWP model and the program and the fact that we will have the session.
Thanks. Thanks, DG. Honourable Chairperson, through you. So I think on the first question about the suspended official, so the official was not suspended because of the deceased participants. The official was suspended because he didn't follow the procedures for us to detect these issues. But you're 100% correct, because somewhere down the line, people employed by the implementing agents have site managers and supervisors that are perpetuating this. And I think that maybe is a weakness in the policy that we can change now when we want to implement a new policy. And because as the system right now stands, we cannot suspend an entire service provider for something one of the employees does, which is why we want to engage with National Treasury to say, how do we word our policy that if this happens in future, that they either demonstrate to us how they get a deceased person to sign a register, or they be suspended. Because we fully agree there's no way it can happen. It's just not something that we can tolerate. But it's very difficult because it's the action of an employee, it's not the entire service provider. So it's difficult to suspend them. And you're quite correct. I think if we look at when we started issuing tenders last year, how the interest changed and how the lawsuits change and how the death threats that we are getting increase, it means we are touching the right nerve. Are we doing it to the extent that we can? Probably not yet. And I think that's why we also need National Treasury's assistance, because unfortunately, due to the size of the program, it does attract that kind of attention. And we do need to come up with a more sustainable way. Appointing implementing agents through tenders is not the right solution. And National Treasury must help us to come up with a different model. The procurement system in the country was designed to buy tables and chairs. It wasn't designed to buy professional services. And that is what we are struggling to do, is to try to buy stuff using a system that was designed to buy something else. And my apologies to the Chief Procurement Officer for saying that. Honourable Khadebe, yes, actually there was a question by Honourable Spies. I think it was for verbal response, but the Minister didn't get to that one, so it's written response that gives all the names of the implementing agents. We submitted it. I don't know, Honourable Spies, if you ever received the answer, but I've got it here. I can project it or I can send it to you. Yes, the name of the implementing agent, the number of participants, the amounts, everything. So it's a matter of public record. So it's not that we don't want to provide it. We are happy to provide it. And I think, as I said, we will make sure that in the next policy we are even stricter. So right now it's only costing them money. And if they decide to then not take disciplinary action against their employees, it's their business. But I think I agree with the suggestions. Let's take it to the next step and say that if you don't take disciplinary action, obviously you can't, we can't blame you if it happens, but if you do nothing, then we can blame you. And and the question you asked about how many times does this happen? My guess is a lot. So it is the unfortunate death of a person that then reveals it. There was actually, because of the information we've been providing to the Hawks over the past year. I think there were 18 people arrested 6 months ago, 8 months ago, in Limpopo, I think. I can't remember. So I hope that now has started to snowball. Because I think also the Hawks has realized how big the problem is. And they didn't have the capacity, I think, initially. It was kind of assigned as one of the cases to one person. But I believe, we don't work with them directly. Obviously, because we're involved in the CWP, we must also be investigated. So we don't work with them directly. But the last I heard is that there are other arrests, that they are busy talking to the NPA, and they will be making arrests. But unfortunately, we do not have the information to report. And I don't think they will ever give us that information until the cuffs are on the wrists, and then they'll obviously tell us who. But I do think that the proposal of having a workshop with the portfolio committee on the CWP is a very, very good idea. Because in this scenario, it's very difficult to engage and discuss, maybe in the way that's necessary to go into the depth and the details. So that if we were able to have one member of parliament leave slightly more satisfied today, maybe we can get to a situation where everybody leaves a little bit more satisfied. I think that was all related to CWP. So I'm skipping some of the questions you've asked, simply because I think we can do it better in a scenario like that. If we but if we are actually in a room and we have kind of more of a workshop and a briefing session than a committee meeting.
In fact, okay. In fact, you are tired. I'm even tired myself. When you listen to okay, DG.
Thanks, Chair, if you'll allow me. So I wanted to also just say I definitely welcome the proposal of getting the SIU to come and also provide us with an update. That will be really appreciated. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit about the principles around the reorganization, but I also thought it might be better if I could also then either submit a full document, or perhaps if we're going to meet sooner rather than later around CWP, this could be the second item. But the key principles that we employed in reviewing our operating model, firstly, it was to really look at the mandate of the department. And just to make absolutely sure that we are very clear about what our mandate is and what is expected of us, and how then that we then reorganize ourselves to actually meet those expectations. So we also then, excuse me, strategically had to, we actually did a refresh of our strategic outlook, which meant that how is it that we then look at all the strategic objectives, and how is it that we then ensure that our strategic objectives also have an impact. So the principle on the review of the structure was, the first one was to say, as much as we at the moment or at the time did not have any direct feel into the provinces, there is expectation that through the IGR process that we are to be much more coordinated, collaborative in our whole approach when it comes to the spheres. So we then looked at how it is that we could have one point of entry at least into every province, and that we will be able to then hold one person to account within that province. And that's how we then came up with the operational branch, which we then called the Local Government Operational, or LGOS, where we then said, let's have 9 chief directors, 1 for every province, then at least have directors, at least 2 to 3, reporting to each one of those provincial heads, and then also a deputy director that will be responsible at least for every district. So trying to really mirror what is expected from us at the moment, meaning that with all the the interventions that we are also then required to deliver upon, that at least we can also have a better sense of what's happening at the grassroots or at source, especially where we're required to provide the support. So that was what the operating model was absolutely premised on. But at the same time, we also needed to look at having a headquarter or a national arm that was smaller, but had to then look at all the legislative policy issues, but also making certain that we had the right competence and skills put in the correct place to be able to then look at all our specialized areas within the department. And that's how we then came up with the PGA area, which is policy, governance and administration. Because if you also look at our track record then over the past, let's say 18 months, and if you look at what we've been required to do in terms of regulations, etc., we've really tried to also look at that end-to-end process or value chain and make sure that we condense that so that we have a quicker output or result. So that was the other thing. We needed to look at efficiencies in our process, how is it that we could deliver in a quicker way, but more importantly, that we take away the silos and begin to get everyone to work as more cohesive teams. So the principle that we also now employ is that when there's anything that needs to be done, we pull the expertise from all areas, we sit as a group, we create the streams, and then we try to run with things. So that is a key difference in how it is that we looked at our whole approach. And in trying to now also ensure that we operationalize the model, we've had to also have a strong change management element in the back end. We've had a number of interactions and engagements with everyone, especially at our senior management level, where they've all had to give input. We must say that it's not a perfect operating model. We would have liked much more resource than we have, but we were also limited by our cost of employment and our budget. And also noting that our budget for this upcoming financial year drops. In fact, we will not have enough money to actually pay the current contingent of staff, so we're taking that up with National Treasury, and then it increases somewhat in the year thereafter. So the logic around the dip or the reduction in our cost of employment needs to also be reviewed. So those were just the high-level principles that we employed to try say with what we have, how do we leverage that to strengthen the capacity and the capability. The fact that we are also in our infancy in this, we do understand that it's dynamic, it's evolving, it's changing, and that we might have to sit back and say, this is not working well, how is it that we then review that or strengthen it so that we can also just move from strength to strength. We also looked at the number one principle for us was that if we are linked or align this to our mandate, it would then mean that it's a organizational design or structure or approach or model that would stand the test of time, because this is what DCOG is all about, this is what we're required to do, and we will then should be able to be better positioned to move forward. We also, within our operating model, had to look at the extended Cocta family, and how it is that we can better engage or collaborate going forward. So I think we're also happy to share, to say the fact that we, for example, in CWP, we had 10 directors responsible for CWP only. We now have combined those functions so that we have one person in the province who's now responsible for end-to-end of whatever it is that we were required to do. We also had bolstered the financial responsibility, the CFO, the control area. We also looking at improving the capacity and capability in our SCM area. I don't know how much more I should say about it, Chair, but I'm just giving the high level. I'm happy to actually demonstrate how the model's supposed to work in practice with some examples. But that is also a process that everyone in the department are also still trying to orientate themselves around and just make sure that we continue with the work that we are doing. Excuse me. Then There was also a question, just a follow-up from Honourable Groenewald around the disaster elements. Anay, I don't know if you want to say anything else about that, but the issue of people still being in shelters is a very real issue. Within the National Joint Coordinating Committee structures that I chair, and I bring all sector departments together to actually address all the critical milestones that we're supposed to have gotten through around the flood. Of course, the human settlements element of it does still remain a challenge. I have specifically addressed it with my counterpart as DG. We also have looked at it between ministries to see how it is that we could better support each other to actually really get that process through a lot quicker. We have put a new stake in the ground in terms of a deadline around it, but there are quite a few factors also on the ground that have had an impact. So I wasn't sure if Anay wanted to just share those. But thanks, Chair. I hope I have now addressed most of the issues.
Oh, thank you very much. We started the meeting at 9. Now it's 4 minutes to 5. This is not the last meeting with the portfolio committee. I'm preparing to give them. there are many chairpersons here. I'm preparing to give them that, to say even if a disaster you have not, I think let's be satisfied with what the DG has said and allow the DMs now to make their concluding remarks so that you don't raise questions when they concluding remarks, DMs.
Let me start, Chairperson, and greetings to all honorable members. As Honorable Khalipi said, I haven't said anything, so let me start by greeting. And also to the team from the Auditor General and the DG and all the DGs present, my colleague here, DM Kadime. Let me start with the issue of I don't know whether she's gone or, but because it's a question of the portfolio, it's not apportioned to an individual. The killing of the traditional leaders in KZN and elsewhere. The matter has been reported to the Minister of Police and the entire police team. Also, Salga had taken it up in its own agenda with the minister. They've even called for a more proactive interaction with the minister, that they were not happy with certain answers, to understand the context in which the councillors operate in the current environment wherever they are. And probably they will then start appreciating the challenges and the killings. And there was one case of a councillor in, is it Machabe, who we even, myself and DM Kadimeng, had to take to the minister during the session of the local government week, which was organized by the NCOP. No, it was in the Council of Mayors in East London. The councillor had arrived in the municipality, review all contracts, and only to find that every contract was outsourced, even those that were not supposed to be outsourced. He reviewed all of them, changed, and then insourced them. And unfortunately, that provoked people who then started hating the mayor. And then they started following him, and they want to kill him. And then these days, I've been reporting the matter to the police at local level. Nothing happened. In the province of Free State, nothing happened. And now he's escalating it to the minister. And the minister did not understand. He just said, no, there will be a review of your security assessment and then see if whether there is indeed a security assessment. And they were not asking police to protection. They were just saying, based on the security assessment, I just want the municipal police to help protect me so that I can clean out this corruption in this municipality. And then my life is threatened and I'm not protected. Up to now, unfortunately, the mayor is not protected. And TM Kadimende said, Minister, if this one dies, it's going to be on your honors. So therefore, there's a call to engage further with the minister really to understand the context in which councillors are being attacked. When you fight corruption, you become the enemy of the corruptors. And these people are so armed and so dangerous because some of the municipalities are captured by business interests that if you touch them, they can even do something. But luckily, it's on the agenda. We just have to pursue and follow up before the end of the year so that that intersection with Salga, ourselves as COCTA, and can happen councillors. But on traditional leaders is a similar pattern also, where unfortunately the disputes that are there in certain families or are now beginning to be taken over by certain forces for whatever reasons, and but also to then get to understand the causes of the killings in KZN in particular, and then some to some extent they are related to the issues of the land, particularly those coastal areas where the best land is given to certain big guys in South Africa who are the beneficiaries, as opposed to the communities who are the owners of the land. And the price has been escalated, as you know, in one, I'm not going to mention it now. The traditional leader was working with Mozambicans to then sign off a lot of money, 250,000 to get the land, which is almost $250,000. And the people locally can't afford that price. And when they protest and say they want, this is our land, our ancestors' land, and the traditional leader was arrogant towards them. But when the Mozambican realized that this man is getting a lot of money, they've hijacked the process now. It's the Mozambicans who are now allocating land, no longer the traditional leader. And when the traditional leader wanted to stand up, they say, we'll expose you or you'll die. And therefore, these are the issues that are there. So we then have to go to the traditional leadership course and then really begin to understand why, what provokes, what are the causes of these particular killings that are there. And we'll then bring a report at a point when we have concluded just working with the province of KwaZulu-Natal, because that's where it's big. In other areas, it's still in isolated incidences, but there it's quite big. So we'll then deal with it. But otherwise, the matter has been reported, and the minister, both for councillors and the traditional council, is aware of it. There was an issue that the minister, as she was leaving, kept saying, DM, please answer it further. The Ditsobotla matter raised by Honorable Grunewald. And indeed, the intervention is on its way. Probably they are starting today towards the Ditsobotla, the administrator. He has already been appointed, and then he was on the way to go and start. Either if not started Friday, there's the last week is starting today. But we had engaged the department there in the province of COCTA that one person alone will not be able to make it. So it must be a team member of whatever numbers, because the issues identified there are quite many. Service providers that were appointed irregularly, besides the two M's, two speakers and two municipal mayors, there are two contracts on security. One M came and appointed his own security company. When he got removed, the security company remained. The other one who arrived appointed another security company on top of it. And therefore, the issues of procurements are an issue that needs to be investigated, regularized. If you have to terminate both contracts, do so, start afresh. So it's going to be a mammoth task to do so. But there are other issues of the lack of payment of the third parties. That has not been happening. And then there are medical aids issues, pensions for fees, and so forth. There are issues of the service providers who did good in terms of their work and they have not been paid. there are 2 bank accounts or 3 bank accounts or many bank accounts in the bank, depending who was in charge and who was in control at what particular point. So they need to investigate all those things of the contracts and really deal with them, and fix their supply chain challenges, and then also management issues ought to be also resolved. The finances of the municipality, because the treasury now decided to withhold the money, and then also National Treasury says, why should we give you money, because you don't know who is accountable. Now they will be able to regularize all those things. So all these matters really need not just one member team to intervene, it will need a lot of others, but we're engaging to really see the team being firmed up. They've got 90 days to 120 days. 90 days because immediately after 90 days there must be elections, and then the new councillors will then move in. So they will find them there, obviously, then begin to hand over, regularize, ensure therefore that whatever work that needs council decisions can then be carried by those particular decisions towards them having substantive senior managers and then MM that is appointed. And then there's, I think, for the team of COCTA here, led by the DGs, what honorable members wanted to know was there's local government system in South Africa. Is it working? Is not working? Service delivery issues is a challenge. There are so many problems in the municipalities, and we have a COCTA as an institution that must ensure that municipalities functions to the optimum. We no longer have 64 dysfunctional municipalities. We have municipalities that are responsive, but we also have a department that is responsive, that can account and tell as to what is it that is working and not working, and what are you doing to fix the problems and the challenges in the municipalities. So some of the questions were as deep as they are, provoking, and then we kept on following them up. You don't get the response, definitely you follow up. Hence, the body break helped a lot, Chair. No, it's a body break, not a caucus. Helped a lot. I think by the time the team came back, they were able to answer questions. And then I think that's why we were able then to say, at least now you are answering. And where you are not happy, obviously you did make those follow-ups. And I also support the area that on the CWP, let's have a dedicated session that can really go in deeper into the issue. What was, what is now, what is the future? Is that future promising or not promising? What is it? When are we going to realize that future? So that it's no longer just pending matter. It ought to then begin to be predictive that by this period we'll be here. And then the CWP challenges that are there are being resolved. Some of them have been resolved administratively, but then I think you just want to be comprehensively assured. I'm stealing the word comprehensive from Honorable Mkhalipi because he used it also. So that we are comprehensively answered and satisfied that all these answers. So the issues of service delivery is another matter. You can't have functional municipalities, but the services are poor. The people are suffering, and then they are at pain, and then they are bothering you as honorable members, and then each time you go home, I don't know how many people come to our home to say, this municipality is not working, this is not working, this is not working. You as MPs, what are you doing? And therefore, that's why you are throwing the questions back to us as executive and also as officials here. Then let's then begin to look at that issue of how do we make municipalities now to be optimally discharging their responsibilities, doing the basics just on the service delivery. We know the challenges of the infrastructure, as CEO of MISA said, they are huge, but just doing the basics, it will take us a lot. The IMS bill, where is it? Obviously, that question didn't arise this time around. It's within the financial year of 2022-2023 to be submitted to Parliament. It has now come back with comments from all municipalities and the districts that the minister wanted that particular process to be also engaged so that we can get the feedback from the municipalities themselves. It is now finally back in the office. We will just be processing it towards the cabinet so that then the cabinet processes can then unfold so that by March next year, before the new financial year, we can have it in place. Probably at the time when it lands in your hands, you will then begin to see whether the intervention proposed are appropriate. The monitoring tool is being improved so that COGTA at the national and COGTAs in the provinces can be hands on deck on the matters, and whether the support using Section 54, as the DM was saying, we need then also to then say, what is this support package? I know that the municipalities get locally the equitable share, but they also get a lot of social grants from water, from MIG, from the others. These are the plethora of supports. But what is it that, in addition, is this IMS bill going to be helping really to resolve the challenges in the municipalities? And the last two issues, there's a new issue, which is a new phenomenon, obviously, that I think COGTA, you cannot let your eyes not be on it. As SALGA has already made a detailed analysis and study on it, we come from 16 coalitions. We now have 80 coalitions in the 2021 elections. So it's almost going towards half of the municipalities that are now in coalitions. So, and the coalitions are not as stable because service delivery is the casualty. So how do we then begin to have coalitions functioning, however, without impacting negatively on the service delivery? The very people that Honorable Msimang was saying are our people. We are where you are as members of parliament, elected by them, and they are looking at you. But then coalition, obviously, is because no one won, and whoever are able to come together, irrespective of what are the parties, what is the norm that then says service delivery must never be compromised in whatever are the issues of your agreements as political parties to form. So it's 80 municipalities, Chair. If we could then look at that, I know that Gauteng sent a team to Belgium and Denmark to go and study the model of coalitions. They came back with something they think it can be looked at in South Africa, but I don't know. Even National Parliament went. So probably then bring those things to the fore, let there be a discussion, a debate, because it's an era of coalition. For the next 20 years, I think we are going to find ourselves in that era of coalitions. So from 16 to 80 is a sign that the coalitions are here to stay. So, but then...
but they are failing because of EFF.
Let me not enter into that debate. And also you look at the metros. Only 2 metros have a clear majority, Cape Town and Buffalo City, full stop. 5 others are in coalitions. And then one Mangaung is hanging with 49 and 50. 51 and 49. Just the difference of 1. In eThekwini. Eastern Cape. Yeah. Nelson Mandela is also 1. So you could see, therefore, that the biggest municipalities themselves are now caught up in this coalition. So we can't ignore them any further. And 3 of the major metros, they constitute 64%, 43% of the GDP of the country. And they're in coalitions. If they are not stable and able to generate and with the economic drive, because economy in the world now globally is driven by the cities. So if the cities themselves are not there and the towns that are there are not driving and then are not cohesive in terms of local government system, it means the economy is just going to collapse in certain areas. Then we'll have companies deciding where is better services being rendered. And they'll migrate, as they did Clover in Ditsobotla, going to other municipalities that are already overcrowded with investments. And the poorer areas becoming even more poorer. So I think I'm just giving, so that then we'll deal with that. And then the last issue was just on what the DG Depofa said on the DTA matters, the discrepancies that exist across provinces in supporting the traditional matters. Throughout this visit that we are concluding this week, we'll have visited 7 provinces with the Deputy President, and tomorrow I'm going down to Northern Cape for the Wednesday Imbizo, and then we are in the Eastern Cape on Thursday. Once we're back, we'll be able then to say, this is the outcome of our visit. These are discrepancies. That's where we're intervening, but we need then to do a norm and a standard that is equal to all provinces so that the support is the same across all the traditional leaders, their traditional councils, and so forth. And the issue of the Customary Initiation Act and the issues, I hear DG say, Minister said no, but they are lobbying very hard that through the Interministerial Committee that the law must be reviewed. And I said to the traditional leaders, tell us the areas of the review and the challenges that informs those particular reviews. And then we will then, through the work stream that is led by the Minister of Justice, then begin to look at the composite of those issues and then begin to look at whatever law that informed us with the Children's Act, whether in the review and the amendments proposals can emerge or not. But we are not closing all as is, but the law continues as is. However, we'll then be taking cognizance of the issues that are raised by traditional leaders, that the law has not been as adaptive from one province to the other. I think it's 4 provinces that are already raising outcries around these particular issues. Thank you. Let me stop there and allow the DM Gadiman then to fill up other missing gaps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DM. I don't think there are any gaps to fill, but more work to do, Chair. Noting from the inputs of the honourable members of the portfolio and your concluding remarks prior lunch, not conclusion of the meeting, summing up the comments from the members of the portfolio. I wouldn't want to go into issues one by one. I think Honourable Bapela did try to make an indication. Suffice to say that 40% of the South African resides in these metros, which then means it's a total shift of your small town, rural town movement in terms of trying to capacitate and deliver. Because by their very own designs, metros were self-sustainable or are self-sustainable. But if you clap that 40% to the almost 157 total of small and rural, then it means your gap of non-service delivery increases, even in areas where not necessarily finances or capacity is a problem. And that is what magnifies actually the biggest problem that Honorable spoke to, in terms of not being able to clearly define how do we intervene, how do we assist, how do we lead, even from a legislative point of view, to move out of the bracket of we are kept to this level, but rather to come out clearly to say, we have this power, we don't have this power, and it's this one who has this power. May you please assist to unlock so that we are able to manage. But also to be able to showcase where we have the power and it's legislated, to what extent have we utilized it? Is it bearing results or does it need modification? And that takes you on what DM might have not spoken to, but the AG did highlight on it, and I do believe that we may want to look closely into it. If you are moving at the request of MISA, some of Schedule 5Bs to Cs, what will be the assistance in terms of injection, and it responds to what honorable members are saying and what MISA is saying in terms of not having sufficient capacity and ensuring that you widen the coverage of assistance and intervention. I think, Chair, those were the few comments I would like to add in terms of what we would want to conclude on, but emphasize the apology with regard to the non-response, and we'll also personally make a follow-up and assure members that we will be mindful not only to you, but also to even communities, particularly when they raise issues and inquire needing assistance on what we should be doing as a department or as government. Thank you very much, Chair. Let me close it there.
Thank you very much. As already indicated, I think in closing the meeting, maybe one call that we should make is to say COGTA, from what I was listening, a qualified audit outcome is not acceptable. Whatever qualification, we want it to come from them to say this is our target and we want to see plans leading to that. That would actually demonstrate the commitment of leadership. Two, there must be consequences for wrongdoing, whether they are historical or whatever. It's a demand that we are making across government, that we are beginning to see that leadership is not keen to make sure that there are consequences for wrongdoing. To a point where now we are told that these mafias, the threat by mafias is beginning to be an issue. But it talks about leadership. So one would actually demand as well, as part of what we were talking about here, there must be consequences for wrongdoing. Even those who jump the ship before they are found or followed. I don't think we want to hear this story that says people jumped before we could act to them. They are still South Africans. They are still South Africans, so there must be action there. The cases of the RIP5s, I think we must get somebody who we can submit that, but it must extend beyond that to say public servants at COGTA must take into account that we said people first. What is that? Patupili. So maybe it's time to revive that program and make sure that those who serve the people serve them well. And now the last point would be the law enforcement agencies. I think the DG was not specific in terms of what are those cases. Like it was said, we can follow up on that. But it would help to have concrete cases where we say law enforcement agencies, because if we pick a gap even there, it will say we are not serious about fighting corruption. So hence one would suggest that let's be specific there, and then I think we can consider. So in other words, all of us, I'm not sure if we are as committed as the atmosphere is outside to say if we don't deal with wrongdoing, our country is going to the dogs. And I think all of us will have to commit and say, let us be counted to say we confront anything that is wrong, that is happening. But like I'm saying, the questions were raised, you responded, and I'm sure all of us, we are different as we started, We do have some answers, we do have some issues to follow up, and I assume as well COGTA have the say. If we can close the meeting at this point, thank you very much for all the contributions. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.